So, Zach, despite knowing us for about, I would say, 15 seconds, how did you feel that the last direct message we sent to you was something about shirts off for this podcast?
Yeah, I was like, do I do
it? Well, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see DJ went with his own advice. And we usually have a thing. We call it NSS. It's No Shirt Sunday. We started this back in the day. And DJ, what are you doing? We're recording this on like a Wednesday.
Gotta change it up every now and then. Keep the people guessing.
Keep the people guessing. Keep the people loaded. And with that, let's get loaded. Because this is the Loaded Box Podcast.
Oh, we never finish first because we finish last.
As DJ tries to get a quick swig of beer in before we start the actual podcast. But welcome, everybody, to the Loaded Box Podcast. I am Ben Morgan. That is DJ Primo. And as you heard briefly in the intro, we are joined by Zach. Zach, is your last name Patraw?
Patraw. But that's all right. No one gets it right at the first shot. So
French, nice. Zach, you do a lot of things for a lot of different places. So how about you tell the audience what you do and where people can find your work?
Yeah, I've really branched out this year. Gridiron Experts. I do all my Dynasty contents over there. Me and Matt Hicks over there. We have the Dynasty Draft Room. Excuse me.
That was a cool noise.
Yeah, the Dynasty Draft Room. We got our podcast over there. We strictly stick to the NFL Draft, Devy, and Dynasty. And then I do some content over at Dynasty Happy Hour a lot. And then Last Word on Sports, I write Vikings content over there. Yeah, that's about it. Oh yeah, I can't forget about the Scoop, the weekly fantasy football show we do. I'm on the radio down here in Minnesota, just a little small town show. It's a lot of fun content. I love what I do, and I'm always so busy, and I love it. And we're about to get to some 2020 class here in a couple weeks. Right. Just a little teaser for the podcast.
Nice, I love it. It's one of our favorite times of the year as well. So we are glad to have like-minded individuals like yourself on the podcast. So we are going to be doing our third NFL Draft Prospect Preview podcast. This time we're talking wide receivers. However, if you missed the last couple of podcasts, go back, check them out. We discussed this year's top cornerbacks with Zach Hicks of Stampede Blue and the Draft Wire. And we did top edge rushers with John Chapman of Eat Sleep Fantasy Football and the 49ers Hub. But before we get going, DJ has a specific request that's football related. It sounds like it might be yelling related. He's given a warning here that maybe you want to turn your volume down. DJ, what do you have here? I think DJ muted himself and hasn't said, oh, here we go. DJ's ready now.
I got some shit to get off my chest, all right? So I got to stand up for this because I've been doing, so anybody who listens to this podcast, like I said, turn the volume down because I'm about to get loud. Anybody who listens to this podcast.
He's pacing.
You just see my dad bod here. Knows that I fucking hate tight ends, right?
Yeah.
Fantasy, when it comes to fantasy, I hate tight ends with a passion. Here's the problem. I've been doing a lot of looking at mock drafts, getting my mock draft ready lately, and in the first round, I've seen 2 fucking tight ends going, and I couldn't be more pissed. This is my promise to all my fans, all my haters, everybody. In my mock draft, I will not mock a single fucking tight end, just out of spite. Because I can't think that a fucking tight end is going to have enough impact in anybody's lives to go in the first round. Ben was dissing Saquon Barkley last year, and these fucking guys want to draft a tight end in the first round? Fuck out of here. Fuck tight ends. Fuck Ben. Only nice asses. Let's go.
My favorite part about this whole thing is you left out one huge point. Not only are there 2 tight ends that are probably going to go in the first round, they're both from Iowa. Iowa, DJ.
It's bullshit, man.
We probably all have a similar feeling on Iowa because DJ, obviously, with his Packers shrine behind him, is a huge Packers fan. I'm not relevant because I'm cheering for the Dolphins to tank. And then if you're on YouTube, you see Zach is just loaded with Vikings gear.
Yep.
Well, we got a nice mix this way, at least. DJ, how are you feeling after getting that off your dad bod chest?
Sweating a little bit, so it's actually heated up in my basement now.
I can't wait for your Packers to take one of those guys.
Oh, I know. I'll be so fucking angry.
You're gonna be thinking about taking them 1-on-1 in your rookie drafts now too.
Yeah, no kidding.
One of those guys.
I'm gonna take them now.
I love it. Well, let's get into what we are here to do. We've got your top 5 wide receivers, and we like to do it a little bit differently. So how would you feel about starting with your number 3 guy?
With my number 3 guy, you are switching it up. My
Yes.
number 3 guy is A.J. Brown out of Ole Miss. I know. I feel like I had some controversy there with a lot of people. You either really like him or you really don't. I don't know. Where do you guys stand on him?
Personally, a huge fan. DJ and I talked a little bit about Brown before you hopped on. I'm a huge fan. DJ, what do you feel?
I like him a lot.
I mean, this dude he's so versatile. I mean, there's so much he can do. I know a lot of people don't like him outside, but he's great in the slot, and he has worked outside. I mean, you got to be pretty good when you have an offense run through you, and you have guys like DK Metcalf and Dawson Knox, even DeMarcus Lodge there. So, I mean, obviously, coaches there thought highly of him. I think that he's going to be a top 3 wide receiver out of rookie drafts here. I mean, there's obviously 2 more that I like a little bit more than him, but it's almost 1A, 1B, and 1C for me. That's how much I like A.J. Brown.
Right. I'm a huge fan of wide receivers that I consider to be great after the catch. I mean, I was huge on Jarvis Landry coming out of college, and I loved the fact that in the second round that year, the Dolphins took him in the draft. It was like my all-time favorite player getting selected by my favorite team. It was beautiful. And I'm not saying that Brown's quite on that Landry level after the catch, but I like what I've seen, and I really think that if we were doing my top 5, Brown might be my number 1 in this class. So with that, do you think I'm overreacting, or is there a chance in this draft that he's the number 1 wide receiver off the board?
No, you're definitely not overreacting. Like I said, I got him 1C to these top 3. I think very, very highly of him. When you talk about him after the catch, I would put him up there with Jarvis Landry. I don't think that's outrageous at all. I mean, just one major thing I look at when I'm scouting wide receivers, it's their release off the line of scrimmage and their route running, and he was one of the tops in this class. I mean, there's so much he can do. His footwork off the line, his hand technique. He's a big body dude too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 226. I mean, he's one of the heavier wide receivers in this class, and he's just very agile with that weight as well.
Yeah, DJ, you were talking positively about Brown right before we started as well. What else do you have to add about A.J. Brown?
Yeah, I thought it was crazy because I hadn't looked at any of the notes, and the thing I texted you, and I said, A.J. Brown is Jarvis Landry. But I do. When I was watching him, like 2 names popped in my head. It was like Jarvis Landry, and it was like Donald Driver, because when he catches that ball, he has the ability to just make guys miss, and it's almost like in a gross way where he's ducking, he's jumping backwards, and that just gets me all excited down in my pants. So it was fun to watch, like go back and watch some of his highlights. So I'm a big fan, and I'm tempted to vault him up to number 1 as well in my rankings here. So I'm gonna have to move some shit around in my mock draft.
Some of the moves he makes, it's like when you're playing Madden and then like they put those crazy moves on that no one can tackle you. You're like, why would Madden even make that a move? That's not realistic. If you haven't seen this guy yet, just plug in his highlights. You don't need to watch all the film. Just plug in his highlights. You will just be blown away. The guy I think he's pretty next level when it comes to after the catch. So with that, I would put him number 1, but he's Zach's number 3. Zach, do you have anything else you want to add to Brown, or can we move forward?
No, let's move forward. I'm excited to get to these next guys here.
Awesome. Well, pause on your excitement because we can never have a guest on and not throw a little curveball at him. So in between, here we go, he says. In between each pick, we like to play a little game with the guest. And the game that we're going to play with you is going to be called Debate Settler, because DJ and I, we have a list, like an ongoing list of items that we disagree on, and we've called upon you to be the ultimate decider on these items. Now, we don't want any indecision. We need you to come hard. We need to come confident, unlike DJ. You've got 3 kids. We know you've got it in you. So, Zach, the first one that we need you to decide on. When you are getting your hair cut, do you believe in talking with that person or complete silence with that person?
Oh, man, that's 50-50 with me.
Come hard, come confident.
Here's the thing. I go to sport clips, so it's either shut up, I'm watching the game, or all right, let's chit chat about our days. But I mean, it start to get to know the person a little bit more. You start to loosen up and can talk with them. So I'll lean talk. I'll lean talk with the person.
Attaboy. I have a little piece of paper here you can't see because this is a podcast, but we're chalking one up to me because DJ, if you're watching on YouTube, looking pretty fresh with that haircut and the dad body, just got it done. But I guarantee you, your over-under number of words said to her was 4. What'd you go?
what does it count? Because they asked me what I want my haircut like.
Oh, that doesn't count.
After that, it's fucking zero.
How many more words can you say besides buzzed?
It's like one on the sides and back and do a 4 on top. That's what I say. But I'm like, and then it's nothing. It's literally nothing from there. I did not say. I just went like a week ago. I did not say a fucking word the rest of the time. Not even exaggerating.
So here's my take on this. I am going to talk to that person. My only hesitation is I don't want to take them away from the job they're there to do. So I'm going to keep that talk as elementary as possible, but I'm also going to talk to them so that they don't just fly through everything. They need to take their time. They need to be engaged with what they're doing. That's my theory on talking to them. You've got to incorporate that into your game, DJ.
Bitch, concentrate on my hair.
and Zach went with me. So from now on, he's the debate settler. So with that, Zach, let's let you do your number 4 wide receiver.
Oh, my number 4, and I just moved him down one spot after the combine. I'll tell you what, I do not let combine numbers sway me one way or the other usually, unless I have huge question marks leading up to that. But Kelvin Harmon's my number 4, and I know he fell in a lot of guys' rankings.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you right now, just watch tape. Don't be a combine scout. Don't be a box score scout. Don't be that guy. Watch this guy in the game, because this guy's for real. He's a contested catch freak. He works the boundaries so well. His body control is unbelievable, probably best in this class. Like I said, he can go up and get it, throw him the ball on the sidelines. He's coming down with 2 feet in bounds every time. He's an athlete. He can catch the ball.
Well, I think
I think if he lands in a really good spot where he can work that outside perimeter, it's going to be very good for him.
Yeah, I saw some of the similarities that you did with those contested catches. I think that was fantastic. My hesitation on Harmon was I just talked about A.J. Brown, about the route running and the after the catch. I didn't see the type of route running that I would have liked to from Harmon. Is that concerning to you, or is that kind of overstated?
No, and I understand the concern. Is it concerning to me? No, because like I said, if you let him in an offense where he can work the perimeter and do his thing, that's what he's going to do well. And if you're going to put him in an offense where he's got to run, all 9 routes, it's probably not going to be the best for him. He's probably not going to succeed as well as you'd hope.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people are concerned with his agility, and with a lot of these guys, agility is huge for wide receivers, but again, the scheme fit is what's going to be key for Harmon and a lot of these guys, because he's not the greatest route runner, isn't very agile, but that's also not his game. And that's what I mean when I say go watch his tape and watch what he does best. Yeah.
DJ, you recently put some clothes back on. I feel like you might have been a little self-conscious about the dad bod there as I scrolled to you on YouTube. Did you have any feelings on Kelvin Harmon, DJ?
Forgot the question.
my question, my follow-up question to my question, Zach, is do you have a particular team in mind or a spot in the draft where you see him going, or maybe a team that you think he could step into and thrive sooner rather than later?
My team, I actually wrote an article for Dynasty Happy Hour where I would like to see Harmon go, and that would have been the Colts.
Yeah.
I think them. What pick do they have in the second round right away? I think it's like 34, 35, 36, something like that.
Yeah, it's fairly soon in the second round.
Yeah, I think if he ends up going there, I think he'd be my 103.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 3 wide receivers, my 1, 2, 3. So
yeah.
He would be my 103 if 104 because he's my 4th ranked wide receiver. He'd be my 104 if he went to the Colts. I think that'd be a perfect landing spot for him.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I honestly don't think that he'd be called upon to do like a ton right away either there. Obviously, Hilton's your number 1. They've got a couple of other guys that have been around the block, can get the job done. But the nice thing is they're not like these overall studs. They didn't go out and make a play on a guy like Antonio Brown to add to that. They do have a couple of nice pieces at tight end, but there's that opportunity for a guy like, let's say Harmon goes to the Colts. He's not going to be called upon to do a ton right away. And once he is like kind of worked his way into the scheme, the door could be open for him, because there's not like all-out studs on that team. Like there could be opportunities for him. So I do like that call as well. The Colts came to mind for me. DJ, since you didn't remember the question the last time, before we go on to his next wide receiver, how about we get back to our debate settling? Which question do you have?
All right. Ooh, this is a tough one. I'm going to go right into our fans here, all right? So Ben and I have a debate on what we're supposed to call our fans. I don't know. You know how, like, I don't know. Just for example, it's like Barstool does Stoolies, shit like that. So we're Loaded Box. We argue on what we should be called. I say drunkies. He says stumblies. What do you think?
Drunkies or stumblies, huh?
Yep.
Gosh, man, I'm gonna go with drunkies. I just like I like getting drunk involved. So
Here's my comeback to that though, because I agree. I like both of the terms. Both of them can get the job done. However, I almost feel like drunkie is almost like a little bit like too elementary. I want to take it up to the next level where we're not like super obvious saying like, oh, we're just drunk. We're drunk. You get to the point, you drink, you're having a good time, you kind of start stumbling all over the place. It's the stumblies. It's the next level. Like,
I get what you're saying. It almost seems clumsy.
Yeah.
Though. You know what I'm saying?
And the other thing is, like, it's like a stumble. Somebody calling themselves a stumbly is like somebody who's pretending to get drunk at the party. Like, they don't actually get drunk.
That's
They're
true.
They stumble around.
Yeah.
That's this little bitch shit is what it is.
See, the thing is, you've never given me that example, DJ. So you got like that 19-year-old girl kind of thing at the college party for the first time. And then Zach is the debate settler. So I think you won that one for the time being. I can't even complain.
Yeah, fuck you.
Let's dive into your number one wide receiver, Zach.
Oh, I think this is where I get a little controversial with a lot of people, and this is another guy you either love him or you hate him, but it's DK Metcalf, another Ole Miss guy. So I got in my top 3 2 Ole Miss wide receivers. I don't know. I want to hear you guys' opinion on him first, and I'll dig into why I just am crazy. I mean, I'm over the top. Like, he's my guy.
I'm gonna let DJ lead this one off because he was hardcore one way. Like you said, he's a very polarizing wide receiver in this class, and DJ is kind of. He saw a few things here that's making him change his mind. So I'm going to let DJ kick this one off.
So what happened was I recently deep dove into DK Metcalf, and I can see reasons on one side why he would be top 10, top 15 pick, why GMs would freak out over him, because he could be, like, with the speed. Though I was watching him run, and I was a track athlete, and the way he runs, he definitely ran track at some point in his life because it's so smooth, it's so fast, and it's so pure. Like, he runs perfectly. He gets off the line exceptionally well. He makes some incredible catches, and he could be like a Randy Moss type, like, wide receiver, which is maybe too high to say, but he has that, like, skill set. But at the same time, I can also see why I could see him dropping late into the first round, something like that, and why people would be lower on him is because when I was watching him at the top of his route, he seems like he rounds off his routes a little bit at the top of the route when he's running like an in or something like that. Those hard cutting routes doesn't kind of dig in and lower his hips, and that's where I get worried as well. And kind of, I don't know, he just runs a lot of deep balls, but it's like he could develop into maybe the best wide receiver in 3 years, and I see myself now falling in love with him. And if you got him like in the right spot, like if he did end up with like an Aaron Rodgers, I would be like maybe one of the happiest people.
And that would be a dangerous combo right there. But here, let me tell you something. You be a 6'3", put yourself in a guy, a 6'3", 228-pound guy's shoes. Yeah. You run a 3-3 or 3-3 or 4-3-4. Yeah, he's running a 3-second 40, by the way. 4-3-4 and try to stop on a dime and turn around. I mean, that's tough. But he doesn't stop on a dime, knowing he's not agile like we've all talked about. Everyone's talked about on Twitter and blown me up for it. But he is. Everyone's playing that vertical route, right? They're all playing the 9. They're all playing like he's going deep, and all of a sudden it's like you stutter step, turn around, and there's the ball coming at you, and that DB is 10 yards the other way. It's like that's gonna be tough to cover even in the NFL, especially for a guy like this. Now, if you want to talk about a separation being a concern, that's another thing where it's like, okay, where's he gonna end up? A 6'3", 230-pound guy. You don't know where he's going to end up going 4-3-4. It's tough to cover someone like that, and I get like separation concerns and whatnot. But when you can box someone out with like he can and go up and get the ball, it's key. And his footwork is not, like I said, he's not agile, but his footwork is it's fantastic, especially at the line of scrimmage. Yep. The way he can just break releases or press coverage at the line of scrimmage is just, it's fantastic. And That's what's gonna bring him that next level at the NFL.
And that was the thing I was most shocked about. See, being a Packers fan and a wide receiver and a big, huge Devontae Adams fan, is I was shocked about his ability to get off the line. I didn't know he had that. I like I said, I just deep dove into him, and his ability to get off the press is great. And if you can have that coming in the NFL, that's already a leg up. Because the way Devontae gets off the line, because he doesn't separate at the top of routes really either. I mean, his thing is beating you off the line and then kind of running nice routes after that. But if he can do that right now with confidence coming in the NFL, he like I said, he's worth a high pick there, especially with the way the league is.
Exactly, and there's a few things that I look for, but one that's really key for me is if you can get out that line of scrimmage, if you can release from press coverage, that is huge for me. That's one thing that I rank at when I'm scouting these guys. If you grade high in that, you're going to grade fairly high for me. I mean, it's one of those things that it's tough to do, especially against corners in the NFL, and how he did it, in the SEC. That's key. That's key.
Yeah. Zach, I see Metcalf right now as a legit bailout option for your quarterback and a guy that you can get the ball to right away. And if they give him some space at the line of scrimmage and really get him the ball right away on, say, a screen, force a defensive back to try to tackle that's going to be very hard to do. I think he can excel in those right away. Do you see him being used as that right away, like the deep threat, the guy you get the ball to in space, make a defender tackle him? Or do you think he's already more complete than that and can step in and make an impact right away in other routes than that?
Yeah, I put out a tweet when his pro day hit with
Zach's a little sketchy right now.
Videos of what the stuff. He's a freak athlete. The dude's a freak. The only thing he didn't do well at is his agility scores. And guess what? You're not going to ask him to run these, post corner post routes. I mean, that's just not going to happen. Do what he is good at. He's going to succeed. Ask him to do something. He's going to succeed. And if you want to throw the ball to him, he's going to win that ball, win that contest there. So, if you ask him to do that, he's going to do it.
If you're making a prediction today, he's definitely going in the first round. Where do you see him landing?
First round, my hope was for him, and hear me out on this one. My hope was for him to get to the second round and have the Niners draft him at the top of the second. I think that's a perfect fit for him. I know. I've gotten blown up for that on Twitter as well. But if I want to see him go somewhere, it would probably be. Oh gosh, I don't want to say it because I think it's terrible with the quarterback situation they have now. Because knowing how bad Case Keenum's deep ball is, but I think if you put him on the Redskins and let Case Keenum toss up a rainbow and let him go get that ball, I think it's going to be. I think it would be good actually.
We'll bleep that out, Ben.
Yeah, we can edit that.
I just swore on the podcast. You got to bleep that
I
out.
think that means we're up for a debate settler.
So,
all right.
Hold on, DJ. He's not ready yet.
I don't think there's. The second round would be amazing to me because I don't see. I see it impossible that he would get past Green Bay at number 30, ever. If that guy fell there, there's no chance.
He's not getting past Oakland at 24 or whatever.
He's probably not. Yeah, you're right.
He's not going to the second round. It's a hopeful thing because I think the 49ers is just a perfect fit. But yeah, I got into this debate about with Vikings fans because we all as Vikings fans we all know how bad Case Keenum's deep ball was. I honestly was never a fan of him in the first place, but he had that rainbow that he could just drop in the bucket. Yeah. And I know a lot of times Thielen or Diggs had to go up and fight for it, and they're not. I mean, they're good with contested catches, but not DK's better at that than them. You give him that opportunity with Keenum. I mean, you got a decent offense with Darius Geis and AP and that solid offensive line and Josh Doxson and Jordan Reed if he's even healthy. I mean, I wouldn't mind that at all. To be honest.
Are we still talking about Adrian Peterson?
Come on, we're talking about AP.
Guy out of here.
He's a Vikings fan. He has that loyalty. You've got to.
Look, I like Adrian Peterson as much as the next guy, but just call it.
He's a complimentary back now, man. He's going to excel in that role.
That's true.
He's going to be dead soon.
DJ's been killing AP since like I don't even know. I don't even want to go back that far.
Frank Gore's too. I can't take Frank Gore. It has nothing to do with Adrian Peterson. I respect him. Honestly, he was one of my favorite running backs to ever watch because I do love running backs, and that's my specialty. But once they get
see him twice a year too.
That's one of them. Once they get to this age, it's like fucking just give it up. Get out of here.
All right, let's settle a debate here, Zach. Let's see. Do you support this or do you not support this? And the question is, binge watching the Olympics, despite the sports being games you only care about when it's time for the Olympics. So basically, are you a huge Olympics fan, or could you go without it?
So if you're asking if I support it, then I support whatever you're into. But am I into it? No, I'm not into it. I do. So if hockey's on, I'm obviously in Minnesota. I'll watch hockey, but they didn't have the pro athletes in hockey this year, so it was just kind of or whatever year it was. So it was kind of a dud, but. If it's on, I'll throw it on. But usually, I'm not watching TV. I'm usually watching college tape or something. So
yeah.
No, I'm not. That's not usually my game. So
I'm exactly with you. I don't need to add any more. DJ, do you want a couple of seconds to defend curling and figure skating and bobsled or whatever the hell it's called?
You know what? I'm sorry that you guys are communists and don't want to fucking represent America. America, all right?
In America, I'm a thing. I'll represent America in football.
Don't want to hear it, America.
I love it. Well, through 3 debates, I'm up 2-1. Zach, let's go to your number 5 wide receiver.
Number 5. I seen on Twitter this last week talked about how Deebo Samuel's a sleeper. For me, this guy, he broke out last year. I thought he had a great year last year. He was on my radar last year. I was happy he, decided to stay in school and finish out his final year as a redshirt senior. He is just a fantastic route runner. You want to talk about someone who can run any single route that you ask him to run, he's the guy, and he's going to win more often than not. Oh, man, I've seen a sweet video of him just running this big route and burning a good corner. I forget who it was, but talk about getting happy in your pants. That was about it for me.
You came hard and confident with that take.
Yeah, you actually sounded like you fucking just made another baby, and you're like, oh man. I thought like you saw something outside your fucking window.
Oh, dude, I saw it in my head. I'm like, oh damn, that's right. I remember that. I was like, that was dirt. But yeah, he's not tall. He's 5'11", 215. But look at guys like Diggs who could win on routes like that. He's not tall either. He's 6 foot. Like he's only 200 pounds. But and he wins routes just like that as well. So you want to talk about someone who's going to be like the next Stephon Diggs? I could see Deebo being that guy.
Zach, would you say that Samuel is the best wide receiver in this class if you're looking purely for a guy that you could line up either on the outside or in the slot?
No. He would be the second best.
Second best behind?
N'Keal Harry, who we'll probably talk about in a little bit here.
Yeah, we'll get to him in a second. DJ, do you have anything on Samuel?
You don't fucks with Deebo.
That's very true. That goes back to DJ's point, though. Like, if you don't have a normal name, if you literally go by, like, a nickname, do you automatically get elevated to, like, a round higher than where you would normally go?
Always.
That's some next-level scouting right there.
I think it is, though.
I've run the numbers. You're always up another round.
Do you have a particular landing spot you would like to see Samuel?
I don't, honestly. He's one of those guys where he's probably going to excel with any team that because a lot of these guys, they already have their solidified number 1 wide receivers. But if you're going to pinpoint one spot where I'd like to see him go, would probably be Jacksonville with Nick Foles, and they don't have those guys that can really win routes anywhere on the field, any type of route. You got Dede. There's another good name for you. Dede Westbrook, who's not. He's physical. He's a physical guy, but he's not going to win on those type of routes like Deebo will. So you need a guy that can win at all levels on the field, and I think Jacksonville would be a solid spot for him, especially with Nick Foles throwing the ball. Leonard Fournette running it. Get some offensive line help, and you get another pretty good offense there. Yeah,
I like that fit. You need to. This feels weird, but I almost feel like Jacksonville. It feels so weird to say this, but it's almost like they're in win now mode because they went all in with Foles at quarterback. They have the good young defense. We've seen it in Seattle. You can't keep that together forever. And Fournette's a good running back when he's healthy. They can get that offensive line solidified. They finally have a guy that's not going to turn the ball over every other possession. It feels weird, but like Jacksonville can make a sneaky run. And I think if you get a couple more playmakers, Marquise Lee's going to be back. Is that like a sneaky, dangerous team, or have I been drinking too much? What's happening here?
I think you're a little buzzed, but not drinking too much. I'm not like a huge Foles fan. Everyone was talking about Foles' offense, but that's not even close. But you are right that they are in a win down mode. I mean, they were so close to going to the Super Bowl a couple years ago that they just fell off. I mean, Leonard Fournette dealt with a lot of injuries, and when you don't have a guy like him in your backfield, you're going to struggle. And that's what they relied on is the running game with Fournette when Bortles was there throwing the ball to the other team every other down. So, I think getting Foles is huge and keeping that defense together. I mean, losing Dante Fowler, I think, was really, really bad at the deadline last year. So, I think if they get another edge rusher, I think that. So it's another one of those years where Jacksonville could take the division. Right.
That almost could have been one of our debates, DJ. We could have had him settle our Blake Bortles debate, but it is your turn, and I do want to say before you make your pick, you might want to make it strategically because this is the second to last debate he settles, and if you want to have a chance to win the debate contest, you need him to pick your side here. So choose wisely.
Ooh. This is intense.
All right. Well, I got two choices here, and they can go either way.
That's why it's a debate.
Right. Let's make it quick. Let's make it easy. Tits or ass?
Tits or ass? Ass all day.
It's over. It's over. If I had another beer, I'd crack it right now. DJ, you're going to lose that one forever. I've been telling you for years. The ass tells more. If she has a fine ass, the top half is going to be fine. You don't know that the other way. You don't know that the other way.
Saying anything.
Huh?
You're not even saying anything. You're not even making sense.
Zach, did it make sense to you? Thanks.
That made sense to me, actually, because that's the way I think, too.
It's beautiful.
How many more times is the girl walking towards you and away from you? You know what I mean? They're usually walking away from you. So.
Well, that's not who's like me, though.
I guess not.
That's the problem.
My fiance might say differently, but I got that one.
My wife and my one child, and I get all the girls walking towards me. But whatever,
I got the fiance vibe, so all of them are already walking away from me anyway. So
yeah, and DJ's now has that dad bod vibe, so he's probably going to have them start walking away fairly soon.
They love the dad bod, I tell you what.
Once you hit like 32, man, it's on. Nice. Well, let's round out Zach's top 5 with his number 2 wide receiver.
I alluded to him a little bit earlier. I mean, N'Keal Harry. A lot of guys number ones, and I can understand why. I mean, this dude he's quick, he's fast, he's strong. I mean, 27 bench reps. Was that the video or did he actually bench 27 at the combine? I don't remember. I know he benched like 27 on that freak video he had, nonetheless, I mean, he's got strong hands. Sometimes I know he lets it get deep into his body, the ball get deep into his body sometimes, which that kind of actually dropped him to my number 2. If he was more consistent, catch the ball with his hands than his body, probably would be more of my number 1 guy. It's a bad habit that he's got to break. He's got an interesting set of routes that he runs. He could be a slot guy. I mean, that's why I like him number 1. Where he when you ask me if he could line up anywhere in or outside, he's a guy that lined up in the slot and did very well, and he also lined up on the outside and defeated press coverage very easily and ran good routes as well. So I can understand why he's some guys is number 1, but just the freak upside of DK has him at 1 for me. Right. But he's a very good number 2 for me.
Where would you rank Harry in this draft class in terms of making catches in traffic? Because from what I've seen of him, he controls his body very well, and he comes down with the contested catches more often than he doesn't.
Yeah, and the only thing that worries me is he's not very physical. He does win the contested catch quite often, and he can catch those balls that are in tight windows. But there's times where I see him, and it's like he should just be boxing this dude out, and he should be able to just dominate him with his strength. But sometimes I'm like, it's almost like he didn't want to do it.
Right.
And it was odd to me, but nonetheless, I mean, he can do it. I just want to see it more consistently.
because of the fact that he can play and exceed both inside and out, slot and outside as a boundary wide receiver. Is he a good fit for basically whoever he takes, or do you have a preference here? Do you have him mocked in a certain spot that you're feeling comfortable with?
Yeah, man, I got eaten alive on Twitter. I love being a little controversial on Twitter. I'm not like too controversial, not where it's like outrageous or nothing. But my favorite landing spot for him is Baltimore, and I'll tell you what, Lamar Jackson can't throw past 10 yards.
Right.
Where does N'Keal Harry win most of his routes?
There you go.
Intermediate areas.
Yep.
Inside, line of scrimmage to the 10-yard range. And he is going to dominate with someone who has that dual threat ability that can run the ball or throw it within 10 yards.
Yes.
And now they got Mark Ingram as well. So their offensive line needs some help and get a little more protection. But again, if you're throwing the short intermediate routes in the field, you don't need a lot of protection to get that ball out quick.
Right. And they play the Dolphins week 1, so he's good for about $150 and 3 touchdowns. DJ, do you have anything for Harry, DJ?
Yeah, I guess my biggest worry with Harry is his ability to separate. I don't know if he's going to if he's going to be able to separate from cornerbacks. I feel like they're going to be able to ride him the whole time. I don't know. That was the one thing negative that I noticed about him. This is a case where I think that really cool uniform and devil horns thing might vault him up a little bit higher for you.
Yeah, I know you did hit the nail on the head there. I mean, he does struggle to separate, but the thing is, you could teach that. And I'll be honest with you, it is one thing that I do rank highly when I'm looking at wide receivers as well, which is another reason why he's number 2. But you could teach things like that. You could teach footwork. You can't teach the way he can run routes. But you're right. It does make me nervous the way he can separate.
My feeling when I thought about him, and I know this goes against our rules, but it was like Alshon Jeffrey is kind of what I thought about him. No?
I totally see where you're coming from there. I think that N'Keal Harry is more agile when you talk about Alshon Jeffrey. I don't think he's got that, the type of like the loose hips that you kind of look for. Because I think N'Keal Harry can make any type of catch that you ask him to make. Alshon can go up and get it. I just don't think he's going to be. Then again, I've been watching Alshon Jeffrey for so long that now I see him older, and it's like,
Yeah. You said you've been diving into some tape for the 2020 draft. Is there anything that DJ's alluded to with how he scouts players that you may incorporate into your next year's draft class evaluation, such as nicknames or?
No.
No. Well, that's your fault.
Yeah, that's on you.
I guess I don't want to take it to the next step, to the next level there.
I'm going to be tweeting you every time somebody with a cool name or a cool uniform is playing well. I'm like, you should have moved him up.
Should have moved him up.
Fucking around.
Yeah.
Before we get to the last debate, which is basically meaningless at this point since Zach sees things my way, which we should have seen coming because it's fellow NFC North guys battling against each other. So I think Zach kind of just read my mind and went with me on purpose. So I will apologize, DJ, for making that happen. We have a couple of honorable mention guys outside of your top 5 we want to hit on real quick if you've got a little bit of time. The first one being Marquise Brown. Is your ranking for him, is that more based on recent injury, or is your top 5 kind of set regardless whether he was healthy or not?
My top 5 set, but do you know where I have him?
6.
I got him 6, man. That's pretty good. He's my tier. He's still my tier 1. I got 6 guys in my tier 1 for wide receivers. Man, this guy. I mean, with how quick he plays a game, with his lateral quickness, deep quickness. I mean, the way he runs routes, that's the way he can win. Now, if he was, 190 pounds, yeah, he might be a little higher. But
right.
And the Lisfranc injury, I'm not as worried about that as a lot of people. I'll be honest with you. I think that's something he can come back from and not have to worry about it too much. But then you add in a 160-pound guy that has a Lisfranc injury, it is a little worrisome, and that's why he's at 6. But my top 5 is pretty solidified.
Is he a round 1 receiver?
Oh God,
I'm split on him.
I think he is.
Miles.
I got 6 wide receivers that I think I would be okay with taking in the first round, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I know it's not going to happen, but yeah, I would put him there.
DJ, you are a size freak when it comes to wide receivers. You want your guys looking like Julio Jones and less like.
Man, I'll put that. I will say that for me as well. When I look at their size, and that's one thing where I'm like, okay, let's see what this guy's got. So
Right.
I'm with you.
Yeah, DJ's all about that. So you guys do agree on that. What's your take on Brown, DJ?
My worry about guys like this is like it just seems to me like first round for a guy like this is way too high. A guy who could add value to a team, but he's not going to be, in my opinion, usually that guy. Like John Ross it just ended up being garbage. I mean, what's the one guy Tyreek Hill is maybe the one guy who has a similar type of skill set as Hollywood Brown here, but he's so small, he's fast, it worries me, and it's just like round one seems like way too high to grab a guy like this, or I think adds value to a team, but not a first round pick.
Yeah, more luxury than anything.
Yeah,
it's very risky, and speaking of Tyreek Hill, not a huge fan of his. I'll be honest with you.
Hey.
Yeah, yes, I hate Tyreek Hill.
I think Marquise Brown's is going to be better than him.
Nice, that's a bold take. I like it.
Yeah. He was very, very lucky having a guy like Kareem Hunt and Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball. And without Kareem Hunt, what did he do?
Right. Yeah, that's super true.
You don't have to fucking tell me, man.
Yeah, we're right there, man.
I am the biggest anti-Tyreek Hill guy there is. I thought, anyways.
We got company now. The second honorable mention receiver we wanted to bring up was Paris Campbell from Ohio State. I think it's pretty safe to say most would say that you want to find ways to get this guy the ball in open space and then just let him create from there. So do you think screens and crossing routes are going to be his game at the next level, or can he become a more complete wide receiver than that?
No, man, it's got to be. It has to be screens and slants and quick outs and anything that's 3 steps and go.
Right.
Because this guy, he's not going to win vertically. He's fast. He's not going to win vertically though. He's not going to beat you with the ball in the air. That's not his game. He's got decent hands, but not great. I'm just so tired of these fast guys becoming these like, oh, they're going to be so good. It's like, no, okay, it's not. It doesn't always happen.
No.
John Ross.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I have a perfect landing spot for him, and it would be with the Saints. Put him in a quick game with Drew Brees and let Michael Thomas do his thing. I think that would be a perfect fit. But do I think Paris Campbell's he's my number 9, so I'm not like too down on him.
Right.
I do think that we're going a little crazy on Paris Campbell here when people are talking about him being like a top 5 guy. That seems crazy to me.
Yeah, I like that. I love that take. I like that landing spot. DJ, did you have anything for Campbell?
Nope.
One last honorable mention guy I wanted to talk about was a guy we had talked about earlier, Akeem Butler out of Iowa State. This was the one I was a little bit shocked about because when I saw your top 5 and he wasn't in it, that's what took me a little bit by surprise because several people have Butler as like a top 2 or 3 wide receiver.
That's a good one, man. I've seen him run a lot.
What's keeping him out of yours?
If you can't catch the ball, I want you on my team. He has if you look at the analytics, his drop rate was like 167th best in the nation. It's bad, man.
It's insane.
And let me tell you what: if you can't defeat press coverage and you're 6'5" and 227 pounds, something's wrong. Right. And I get that he's been working with Calvin Johnson, Megatron. That's going to make him the best wide receiver in this class. Maybe. I love him as a prospect. I think he's very raw and someone who can develop into a top guy. But if you're talking about someone who's going to be going in a top 5 wide receiver, he's not it for me. I mean, I remember watching the bowl game where they played. Who was in the I forget what bowl game it was, but he was asked to run a slant and beat a guy in press coverage, and he just could not do it. He gave up, and they threw a pick 6.
You can't do that at the next level.
You can't do that at the next level. You will get your ass whooped.
Right.
You won't feel for the rest of the game. So I need to see a lot of things clean up for him before I consider him a top wide receiver.
If you had to go out on a limb, is that your receiver in this class that's most likely to bust?
Yeah, he is my bust candidate, my number 1 bust candidate, actually. Yep.
DJ, do you have anything for Butler?
I don't know. The whole catching the ball, struggling to catch a ball at the level he's at doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't really affect me much. You have guys like Terrell Owens and Brandon Marshall, who's big guys who drop the ball a shit ton and were able to obviously make good careers out of it. Even Devontae Adams went through a year where everybody on Green Bay, everybody in the city of Green Bay wanted to fucking cut him.
I thought his career was over.
Like, the lover of he's one of the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. So I don't know if I'm gonna knock him on right now.
You won't hear me argue with you a whole lot on that. It is concerning to me. But the reason why I'm not going to argue with you on that, he had 3 different quarterbacks he played with. So I mean, it is, and they're not the best quarterbacks.
No, it's Iowa State. That's a great point. That is a great point. He could be one of those guys that showed flashes, but really hasn't reached his true potential. Whether it's lack of coaching, lack of great quarterbacks that he's going to, but
and the worst offensive line in college football history too.
Throw that in the mix, absolutely. I don't have any other honorable mention wide receivers I wanted to talk of. DJ, did you have any other wide receivers, or can we throw in the last debate?
As we were talking about this, I was thinking, Vikings don't have a first-round pick, do they?
Yeah, they got the 18.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Fuck, I don't even remember going through that. They'll just let the clock run out anyways.
Did you set up your own joke?
What was that, Ben?
I asked if you set up your own joke.
Yeah, I was trying.
Very well done. I actually like the joke. That's fine with me. I guess the question I'm going to have to ask here, Zach, because I don't want to ask you this question if you don't know who the 2 people are. Do you know who Kay Adams is of NFL Network?
I do.
Do you know who Christine DJ? Liahi is from Fox Sports?
Gosh, that sounds familiar. I'm gonna look her up right now.
Yeah, this is perfect. You can Google her while I ask this question, because DJ and I, this one goes back a long ways. I've been saying
who's hotter? It's Christine by 10 miles.
Oh my God, that's exact. All you did there then is close the gap, because that's DJ's girl. There's something.
I agree with that. It's not even close. I don't even understand how you can say Kay Adams.
I don't know. There's this thing about.
She's not. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's just this thing about Kay Adams. I don't know. She wasn't the first one on the block with these NFL shows, but there's just something about her. The way she looks at you, her eyes just sparkle, and she is just beautiful. I don't get that with this Christine girl. This Christine girl, I'm not gonna say she's not hot. It's like going back to that Office debate, in that Office episode, saying how can you say she's not hot? She's one of the best looking women you have. But when you compare her to the other elites, something's missing. I think you're going to want to reevaluate this one, Zach.
No, you just talked about Kay Adams looking at you.
She does.
What world are you living in?
I got that shit in 4K, man. 4K direct TV.
She's looking at you. You're creeping me out, man.
Well,
she's standing in her fucking bedroom window.
I'm watching her. I'm just assuming she's watching me back. That's what it comes down to. One thing I forgot to do in this podcast was talk about Pristine Auction, and I have to mention them because they've been a great sponsor of the show, and they hooked us up with our latest giveaway, which is a signed Alvin Kamara Saints mini helmet. If you haven't gotten signed up for that, make sure you do so. It's in one of our tweets that's usually at the top of our page. Otherwise, it can be found at loadedboxpodcast / I think it's a / anyways, that or a /. Try them both. Loaded Box Podcast, some sort of / giveaways. Check that out. You've got until basically draft day to try to get as many entries as possible. So make sure you get signed up for that and go to pristineauction.com for all of your man cave needs. And before we wrap this puppy up, Zach, we got to say thanks again for coming on and playing our games and giving us your insight and listening to DJ's ways of judging players. So with that, thank you. And 2, why don't you go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you on Twitter, where they can find your work.
Yeah, for sure, man. No, I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a blast. Find me on Twitter at @FF_Dynasty_ZTP. Again, my work's over at Gridiron Experts, Dynasty Happy Hour. Last Word on Sports. If you like the Vikings, I'm writing everything about the Vikings on Last Word on Sports. And then check out our podcast. We're at @draft_room on Twitter. And then The Scoop. We're recording every single Tuesday night, and we hop on the radio every Wednesday. I'll tweet out a link for that if you want to take a listen. We're doing a fantasy football flyover, we're calling it. We're hitting every single NFL team from here to the off season. So fun stuff over there. Yeah, give me a follow over on Twitter. That's the best way to not miss any content.
There you go. Yeah, once again, thanks for doing that. It's some great work, so make sure that you guys are all following Zach and check all of that out. DJ, you always do this at the end of the episode, and it's funny to me, but it's a podcast and people don't know what you did. So what the hell did you just do?
Do you have your phone on you there?
Do I?
Yeah.
I do.
Zach, I forgot your name for a second.
Yeah, I got my phone. What am I? Oh God, what am I doing?
Oh God, what am I doing? I guess I just followed you on Twitter, so you probably don't follow me. So you probably didn't get the notification. But I sent you a tweet.
Oh yeah.
I like to send a tweet to anybody I have on about something that we talked about in the middle of it. Not at the end and tried to get a reaction out of it. Because obviously see it, but I sent a picture of Christy or a GIF of Christy and Leahy because it's something we finally agree on.
It's a fantastic GIF. I dig it.
It's fantastic. DJ.
So you're in Madison then, DJ?
Yes, sir.
Yo, I was just out in Green Bay this weekend.
All right, where are you in Minnesota?
Yeah, I'm in Minnesota.
That sucks.
It's way better than stinky Wisconsin. Driving through that state smells worse than driving through North Dakota.
Wait, do you live in like northern Minnesota? I don't need specifics.
No, about a half hour out of the Twin Cities.
Still sucks up there. It's cold.
It's cold here, dude.
It was pretty cool. We got we were staying right outside of Lambeau Field there, and that place. I hate the Packers, but damn, that place is football, dude.
I one time cried, like, got teary-eyed when I was driving by there, and my wife gets so pissed because I don't get, like, emotional at anything, but I was driving by Lambeau and I started to tear up. Like,
yeah, man.
It's football. That's all it is, man. They don't have anything else.
It's a legit place, and I mean, if no one's been there, I mean, it's like, think about your house in your neighborhood and picture a stadium in your backyard.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's so freaking sweet, man. Like, I can't believe it. And all these people are diehard Packer fans. You got Titletown. You got all these bars around. And God, it's sweet, man. And Doozies is awesome.
Yeah, it's a good fucking place, man.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
That's all I'll give the Packers fans credit for. That's all I'll give them credit for. Is they know football.
We're not Dolphins fans, and we're tanking for our entire fucking life.
Yeah, are you guys stuck to each other yet? DJ talked about crying driving by the stadium. I end up in tears every Sunday after watching my team play. That's how that goes. Well, Zach, I gotta.
Week 2, I'll see you, dude.
Yeah.
You see the schedule?
Yeah, it's not good.
We get the Packers week 2. We'll be at Lambeau. Whooping your ass.
There it is. Shots fired. Zach, we're gonna have you on again. This is too fun.
Yeah, sure, man.
And I love the Vikings Packers rivalry there. So obviously we'll definitely have you on again. But thanks for joining us. All the listeners out there, make sure you're following Zach. Check out our information. We're also obviously on Twitter at LoadedBox. Check out our website, loadedboxpodcast.com. We recently completed our 32-person mock draft that Zach was also a part of, so make sure you check that out.
That was fun, man.
Yeah, that was great. What pick did you end up having? You were late, weren't you?
I had the Vikings. I had them at 18, and I think I took Andre Dillard.
So is that how you want the draft to play out, or is that just what happened to happen in our draft?
That's what happened to happen. I mean, I want Jonah Williams to fall to me. If not, I think it's too early to take a guy like Dalton Reisner. I think Cody Ford went too, so it just kind of fell that way. But I do like him as a prospect, though. I mean, he's so athletic, but I want to see more strength out of a dude that big. And we need a left tackle that's strong. So
yeah, it's still obvious at what the Vikings need to take. It's wild.
It is, yeah. And watch DK fall to him and then take him.
Yeah. No kidding, right?
I'll be like, dude, come on.
Nice. Well, let's wrap this puppy up. Thanks again, Zach, for joining us. And DJ, why don't you go ahead and send us out?
Bye.